Today we will talk about the terrible accident of Uruguayan Air Force Flight 571. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave your suggestion. Thank you for watching and fasten your seatbelt. On October 12, 1972, a group of young rugby players boarded a Fokker 27 aircraft of the Uruguayan Air Force. The atmosphere at Carrasco Airport in Montevideo was filled with excitement. The boys from the Old Christians Club, accompanied by friends and family, were heading to Chile for a friendly match. Between jokes and sports expectations, no one imagined this journey would forever change their lives. Due to bad weather, the plane had to overnight in Mendoza, Argentina. The next day, the route over the Andes Mountains would be risky, but the experienced crew felt confident. As the Fairchild took off again, cutting through the South American sky, hope and youth ruled on board, but above the clouds, a relentless fate was already forming. On the morning of October 13th, the plane resumed its flight to Santiago. The pilot believed they had passed the most critical point of the Andes, but navigation error led to a premature descent. Suddenly, the wing struck snowy peaks. The fuselage broke apart, the tail section detached, hurling passengers into the void. The front section slid down a glacier and crashed violently. Incredibly, many survived. Injured, disoriented, and buried in snow, they faced an oppressive silence broken only by cries of pain. As the white dust settled, the full extent of the tragedy became clear. Isolated, wounded, and unsure if anyone was searching, they braced against cutting winds and freezing nights. The worst was yet to come. Amid the chaos, the survivors gathered to count the living and make sense of what had happened. Of the 45 on board, 12 had died on impact. 33 remained. Some were severely injured, with open fractures and deep wounds. Without doctors or aid, they improvised bandages using clothes and parts of the plane. Team Captain Marcelo Perez tried to keep everyone united. The first nights were unbearable, with freezing winds howling through the wreckage. They huddled together for warmth. Food was scarce. Chocolate bars, wine, a few cans. They rationed every crumb, believing rescue would come soon. But as time passed, hope gave way to anguish. Days after crash, Chilean Air Force planes flew over the area, but failed to spot the wreckage camouflaged in the snow. The survivors heard the news on a small radio. The search had been called off. The shock was devastating. They were truly alone. No trails, no trees, no sign of civilization. At night, temperatures dropped to minus 30 degrees Celsius. Food supplies were gone. Some began to fall ill. Others hallucinated from hunger. Faith and despair coexisted. Huddled in the shattered fuselage, they made a pact. They would survive together. But to do so, they would soon face a horrifying choice. When the last scraps of food were gone, the group faced a horrifying dilemma. Surrounded by death, their only resource was the frozen bodies of their friends. The decision was made in tears and prayer. It was not savagery, but a desperate act to survive. Each bite was filled with grief, gratitude, and guilt. The dead had become the lifeline of the living. Nature demanded the cruelest sacrifice. Day by day, the bonds between the survivors grew stronger. They fixed clothes, insulated the fuselage, and shared tasks. To resist was a goal. To live was a tribute they could offer the fallen. On the 17th day, tragedy struck again. A powerful avalanche buried the fuselage while they slept. The weight of the snow crushed their fragile shelter. 8 people died, including the team captain. The survivors dug with bare hands, desperate to escape. Only 19 remained. The fear returned. Even alive, they were not safe. With their shelter ruined, they carved snow caves and built makeshift tents. The avalanche marked a turning point. Waiting was no longer an option. It was time to challenge the mountain. As days passed and bodies weakened, two groups were formed to search for help. Initial attempts revealed only more snow and mountains, no signs of civilization. The first teams returned exhausted, but one determined trio, Fernando Pardu, Roberto Canessa, and Antonio Vizintin, prepared for a final attempt. They melted plastic for makeshift goggles, sewed blankets, and rationed food. They knew it was their last chance. The mountain was merciless, but the will to live was stronger. On day 61, they left toward the unknown. For 10 days, Pardu and Canessa crossed the towering Andes. Vizintin returned early due to lack of food. The remaining two faced crevasses, cliffs, and freezing nights. Every step was a battle. On the 10th day, they saw a green valley, the first sign of life in months. With their last strength, they reached a river where a man appeared on the opposite side. They shouted. He didn't understand. Pardu wrote a note. "We've been walking for days. We have a crashed airplane. Need help." The shepherd nodded and ran. They had defeated the Andes. The next day, Chilean helicopters flew to the site described by Pardu. As they approached, the survivors rushed from the wreckage, waving cloth and metal. It was over. The rescue took place in two waves due to the extreme conditions. On December 23, 1972, after 72 days in the mountains, the last 16 survivors were airlifted to safety. Dirty, thin, and hollow-eyed, they were welcomed as heroes. The world wept. Their shocking revelations about what they had done to survive stunned many, but understanding soon followed. It was a testament to the power of the human spirit. Upon arrival in Santiago, the survivors faced a storm of emotions. Hugs, tears, questions. Reporters from around the globe surrounded them when they revealed the survival pact. Headlines exploded. Some called them monsters. But most understood this was not crime. It was survival. The Uruguayan Catholic Church declared it was not a sin. Though marked by trauma, the group stayed united. They never denied their choices. They had faced the unthinkable and returned. Their accounts would later inspire books, films, and a deep reflection on the instincts of humanity. What began as a sports trip became one of the most powerful true stories ever told. In the Andes, those young men faced cold, hunger, death, and total isolation, yet they never gave up hope. They returned different, stronger, wiser, deeply human. Every anniversary of the rescue is remembered with reverence, not only for the lives saved, but also for those who remained in the snow. They taught the world that even in the harshest extremes, life can still find a way. The Andes was not only a prison of ice, it became a place of rebirth. Years later, the survivors formed a close group known as La Sociedad de la Nieve. They reunited often, gave talks, and spoke about resilience, friendship, and faith. The trauma never left them, but they turned pain into lessons. Fernando Pardu and Roberto Canessa became symbols of courage. Their book Miracle in the Andes moved generations. In 2023, the story was adapted into a new film, Society of the Snow, reviving the emotional depth of their journey. It was not just a tale of survival. It was about humanity facing the impossible.